Hey everybody, here we go with some basic Flash animation, and I mean basic. I'd like to teach you in this video how to do some motion tweening, and on that same subject how to animate titles. And it's fairly basic. Flash is a way for creating animations primarily with vector art, although you can also animate imported raster art or bitmap art. Just to take you through how I have this set up here, I have the classic workspace. It may open with something else, but I prefer the classic. We've got the timeline at the top and the tool set on the left side, just like we see in Photoshop. Here's motion presets that we'll be talking about in a bit. Let me just set that down over here. Alright. And the regular roster of tools that we looked at in Illustrator are here. We've got the pen tool and shape tools like this, rectangle tool, oval tool, polystar tool, pencil tool, a brush tool, the bone tool for advanced animations, which is very cool that you could put bones literally to help animate walking things. The paint bucket for filling shapes, the eyedropper tool for picking out colors, the eraser tool, hand tool when you're zoomed in to move around the screen, and the zoom tool here. This shows that we have a stroke color that's black and a fill color that is gray right now. And sometimes if you see a slash through either of these, you're not stroking or filling, so you can double click that and turn it back on. Also over here on the right we see that again, fill and stroke. It's black fill and a gray stroke. So I'm going to take the polystar tool here and click and drag, and by default it's coming out to be a pentagon. I'm going to take the the selection tool and highlight this. Oops, lost a little piece there. Let me undo that and start again here. Okay, good enough. I want to group this together just in case I move it around and I lose a piece like that. Control G, and I want to turn it into a symbol, which is important for creating a movie clip and animation. So I hit the F8 button, and I'll just leave the default symbol 1, and I'll say OK to that. And notice that we have properties of the symbol over here. Okay, up on the top in the timeline here, you see that it's defaulting to 24 frames a second. I'm going to leave it for now at that rate. Regular motion pictures are 24 frames a second. So that means if you had if you drew in a notebook this object and then moved it a little bit, like so, and did that on the next page and moved it a little more on the next page, by the time you got to 24 pages of movement like this, and then if you took the book and you flipped it during a 1-second flip of all 24 pages, you would have the appearance of perfectly smooth motion, and that's the basis for motion pictures. Anyway, so here we have on the timeline, here are frames. I'm going to make it maybe a little more than a second, say 40 frames over here. So I click 40, and I want to insert a keyframe there. I'm going to hit the F6 button. F6 inserted a keyframe. And once I've done that, I'm also describing the start of the motion and the end of the motion here. Frame 1 is the beginning, frame 40 is the end. So at this point, using the black selection tool, I'm going to move it across the stage, and notice that this is also grayed in here as it describes the before and after. And now I'm going to right click and say create motion tween, and I clicked right on the 40 here. Sorry, I'm going to click right before it, create motion tween. And let's see, I'm going to move this over once again to here and back to here, over here, sorry. And let me pause. Sorry about that. Anyway, this is a scrubber here to take us through the frames. So here's my starting position, and that little dot signifies the beginning of the animation. I'm going to move this across to the frame just before 40 and move this over there to the right side of the frame. And notice in action 3.0 we've got this dotted green line signifying a dot for each frame. And that's it. So if I hit enter, I can play the animation and see the pentagon just slowly going across the frame. Okay, so that's all right. Nothing too exciting, but okay. So what are some other options here? Let's see. If I click on the first frame here, I've got a couple things that come up. First of all, I can take this and click and move it and create a path for this to go on, which is kind of cool. And we can play that by hitting enter just to see how it goes. All right. And how about a rotation while it's on its travels there? So if I again click on the first frame here and I see this, right in here we've got rotation, direction none, click down and I can say clockwise, and I'll leave it at 1 time right now. And so we'll play that, hit enter. Cool. Okay, notice that this is in one layer, layer 1, and I could add another layer in here and put a separate object and maybe make it fly in from a different direction. And I could have 10 objects and 10 layers and create different scenarios for each one. Okay, so if we want to save this movie, what I want you to do is say File, Export, and Export Movie. And down here are some of the options. We could save it as a SWF, which is a Flash movie, a Windows AVI file, or a QuickTime movie. If you're just posting it to the blog as a movie, this is probably your best bet, or animated GIF right here. These are probably your best options. The AVI is a little bit large, and I'm not sure Blogger is going to be so happy about a SWF at this point. Also, if we incorporate any of these things into our Premiere Pro movie, we'll want it to be either a .mov or a .avi. So choose one of those and hit save, like out to the desktop, and then when you double click it, it'll play as a regular movie. So I'm going to hit cancel for the moment here, though. Also, control, we can test the scene with a Control-Alt-Enter, or test movie with Control-Enter. And notice that launched its own window just to see how it's going to loop and play it over and over again. Alrighty. I did want to show you some motion presets. To find these, you can go into Window and find motion presets. And the default presets are plenty interesting here. If I double click that, let me just show you a few of these. Bounce in 3D, bounce out, bounce, smush, etc. Fly, blur in, fly in from the top, large bounce, medium bounce, multiple bounce. There's enough to keep you amused for quite a while here. And if you like any of these, again, you could just export them as a movie and save it. You know how I'm always looking for variations on what you do. So you can test it here and see what that looks like as well. Now, if I click Apply, it's going to say, in order to apply, you need to select the object on the stage. So, okay, let's do that and see if we just apply it to this object here. And do I want to replace the current object motion? Yes, you know, I had this doing this curve, so I'll just say yes to that. And notice that it's bouncing out of the frame because I'm kind of starting low here. So I'm going to move this up. And let's just see what happens if I play this, enter. Oops, off the frame. So if I zoom out, I can take these control points and adjust them anywhere I want and move them. So let me hit the zoom tool, Alt key to zoom out, and move this guy with the black move tool back up onto the stage here. And zoom back in. And then hit enter to test it. Oops, it's playing both. Well, that's cool. It added extra frames. Notice we're up to frame 115 at the top here. And I could delete the previous frames, but I have an extra sort of interesting thing going on here. So there's a happy accident for you. Bounce out in 3D, the object will get smaller. So double click that and whoops, hit apply. Yes. And play that and see what happens. Same deal. It added the frames after the first movie, which is fine. Again, I could go and delete those frames if I wanted. That's everything prior to here. Or even just squash them back up to the left here. And let's see what happens if I play that. Yep. Okay. So that's just to show you how you have control over your frames as well. The key rate here, the frame rate, I'm sorry, if we wanted to slow down the motion, I could scrub this left. There's 9 frames a second and test it with enter. And notice how slow-mo that is. Again, we could rotate it if I wanted. So play with that. Let's see, play with that. Okay. Let me do a new file here and just show you some text. If you click the stage square here, we can change the color of the stage. That's pretty bright blue, but I'm going to leave it for now. And the same thing applies to making your animated text. Just click on the text tool, and here we have the color of the text. Right now it's that gray. I'm going to leave it for the moment. And when you click on the stage or off the stage, you'll see that you get a cursor inside a box, and over here on the right are the properties. This is the font and the point size. So if I want it to be bigger, I can scrub that up and make it bigger. So let's do all caps, animate, type, and I'll scrub that up a little bigger. It's 52 points, 63 points. Fine, I'll leave it. So this is another object that can be animated. What about going straight to some of these motion presets and seeing what they look like? Text scroll 3D. If I start this at the bottom and double click that, notice this is a classic Star Wars opening scene here, a galaxy far away, etc., etc. So let's hit apply to that. Okay, and then I'm going to hit enter just to play it and see how it's going. Again, if I want to slow it down, I have a choice of adding a bunch of frames, or I could take down the frame rate. It's a compromise between how smooth it is or choppy, and the speed and kind of what your goal is here. 6 frames a second. Okay. So if you start this off of the frame, you do have your classic Star Wars, and you can move this box off of the frame just by clicking and dragging here. The stage, I'm sorry. And then hit enter, and notice it comes on to the stage and zooms out as it gets smaller into space off the stage. So play with some possibilities here. and you can do a straight tween like we did, motion tween at the beginning, or play with these motion presets. So do variations, try different shapes, try different layers, have fun with this. Post your results, do multiple things, multiple exports, and throw them on the blog. I'm sorry, throw a couple on the blog and put the rest in your Google Docs folder. See you later.